Hey, there I am, and there's everybody else. Hey, y'all, welcome to Monday evening for Christians and Cocktails. Thank you for joining us here at the Sunshine Cathedral. Of course, we have our panel here with us this evening, and just let me get the PSAs out of the way real quick. Monday through Friday, midday prayer at noon. We invite you to join us. Also on Wednesday is Share and the Cheer at 6 p.m., and then on Saturdays at 12:30 is Just a Thought with Reverend Dr. Dora Watkins and Reverend Cindy Lippert. And then on Sundays, magical, wonderful Sundays, it's a celebration time at the Sunshine Cathedral at 9 and 10:30 a.m. And of course, we broadcast live at 10:30 a.m. service and invite you to join us for in the room service and or online. If you join us in the room, we invite you to go to the website, make your reservations, and join us. And let's have a wonderful celebration like we did last Sunday, which was pretty awesome too, by the way. If you didn't watch it, get a chance, go back and watch the service from this past Sunday. You will not be disappointed. And now here we are tonight as Tara is looking at me like, what is wrong with him?
He's already been drinking.
Some water. I wish. So let's get this show started for tonight here at Christians and Cocktails. Darrell, take it away.
Okay. I apparently have not had a B12 shot today, but I'll do my best. I would like to say that though I did not have a B12 shot, I had a really, really, really calorie laden lunch yesterday, and still lost a pound this morning when I weighed at the gym. So, so there's that. Okay, so this is how we do it. We gather together. We have a list of questions that have come from hither, thither, and yon. And so we've divvied those up, and people ask me the question. I see what I can do with it. Sometimes they will have something to add to it, either at some point that I didn't make that needs to be made, or a follow-up question. Along the way, we may not even get to our own questions because panelists may come up with something on the spot, or people watching may come up with something. And so if you type a question or a response, a comment in the threads, Tito, who is moderating that, will try to get some of those into the conversation. So he becomes your voice, and you get to be part of this. And if we don't get to it, he still records it. He still captures that information and puts it in the queue for future week's questions. So your question won't get lost. It may or may not get answered tonight, but it will be answered one day. And so that's how that works. So we get our questions, and that's how you can participate. So those are the rules of the game. We sometimes have a secret word that means everyone drink. Tonight we will be drinking at will. So hold on.
Who's Will? Oh,
God's will.
Wow.
And my goal is to drink 750 times tonight.
in honor.
For no particular reason. Okay. So that.
Wow, I just caught that.
You really did just wake up, didn't you?
I'm drinking water, honestly.
All right, so now we know the rules. And so now let's play Match Game 76. That's not what we're playing at all. This is Christians and Cocktails. So Dennis, why don't you ask us an question?
Okay. So do you think God is mad at me for transitioning and changing the body I was born into?
Dennis, I think you were very brave through your transition. I support it to this day. Because clearly being a girl was not right for you. So you made the right choice.
I could have looked like Tara right now, okay? But I decided I would never be able to look like Tara.
We kid around about some things, but we actually do take this very seriously. I don't it's actually heartbreaking to me that anyone would even have that question. Wondering, or maybe having been told that they were somehow disappointing God because they did what their heart felt was right, because they did what they needed to do to feel whole, because they did mostly what they did was tell the truth about who they know themselves to be. And then following that, sometimes they make lifestyle choices, sometimes they make fashion choices. Some people even have surgery to make everything look and feel the way they know themselves to be. but all of that is a process of becoming and acknowledgement and coming out. And so it's just part of living with authenticity. So it's very heartbreaking to me that anyone would think there was that would somehow upset God. And I mean, let's just think about God for 2 seconds. Why would God care? People, I know a lot of people who, they've had their nose done, they've had their ears done, they've had their butt lifted, they've had their butts increased, decreased, lifted, removed, anything. I mean, people do things. And so why is this the thing? Why is this the procedure or the cosmetic alteration this is the time God would be upset? That it doesn't even make sense. So no, I do not believe your transitioning from being known as one gender to being known as another, or being coming out as sort of gender queer or non-binary, or there's lots of ways to know yourself and to express yourself. And I think God is expressed in love and in truth. So if you love yourself enough to take care of yourself and you live your truth, there's just no way that could be offensive to anything divine. In fact, that's letting the divine shine through you more completely, more fully, more truthfully. So no, I don't think people who transition, first of all, the only transition is in how they know themselves, how they express themselves, and how people perceive them. They haven't transitioned from a rock to a cow, or from an ear of corn to a quartz crystal. I mean, they're still a person. They're still a child of God. They know themselves more fully now, and they express themselves more honestly. And I think that just is one of the many ways that we can praise God.
And I will say, all kidding aside, I hope I wasn't offensive to anyone when we're laughing and joking around. But that the bravest people on earth are the people who actually go through that transition process, because it's got to be the most difficult thing that I have ever see people talk about and experience and to go through. Anyone who is trans has my love, support, and let me tell you, I'm in awe of those folks that actually go through that transition, because it's the bravest thing in the world to do. And we know that trans people are more likely to be abused or killed or attacked in many different ways. And to be authentic about who you are, there's nothing better in the world than to live your truth. And I think sometimes too, going back to this question, you think God is mad at me. This question almost implies God is separate from you, and God is never separate from you, and you are never separate from God. So if you are going to live into your truth, you're living into what God has created. So that's what I believe. So
I think God just wants us to be happy.
Yeah.
So I think whatever, and it's really important to be able to love yourself and sort of live with yourself. And our most important relationship is with ourselves. So I think
If you can't love yourself, how in the hell you gonna love somebody else?
Ooh, that's 750.
That is 750.
I remember having a conversation with somebody not too long ago about being made in God's image, and how being transgender may be against that because, well, I was made in God's image, but now I'm changing. I'm like, the way I see it is being made in God's image is more like who you are inside, who your soul is. And your body has nothing to do with God's image because God doesn't have a body that we know of. So how can that be an issue? So yeah, I agree that as long as you're true to yourself and you're happy and honest with who you are, I think that's what God wants.
Yeah, the universe is God's body, and we're part of the universe.
Right.
And so, and your body's going to change anyway. I mean, you're going to gain weight, you're going to lose weight, your hair's going to gray or thin, you're going to get some crow's feet. I mean, your body's always changing. If you get, if you develop a limp or, whatever, your body's always changing. And so if you've now changed that, you used to dress your body one way, now you're dressing it another to present to the world better who you are. And that's just the body of God making more, adjustments.
And I think before we get so caught up in the concept of making God happy, we got to make ourselves happy. Because if we're not happy first, then how can we have a happy God? And so I think a bit of it really begins with self. And if self is evolving, self is transitioning, then self is becoming into who self wants to be. And if that makes me happy, then that will make God happy. I don't think it is a question if God is. If I'm happy, God is happy.
When people ask for the Bible, what does the Bible say about this? Well, not very much. There were various gender expressions in all cultures throughout history, and you could see people who didn't fit the binary, even in Bible times. Eunuchs, for example, and they had a place. And the prophet Isaiah said they even have a special place in God's heart. And the Apostle Paul said that in Christ there's neither male nor female, that we're just one. That sort of, we are the body of the universe sort of idea. But there's even something even more proactive than that, not defensive, but just more celebratory. And that's on the Mountain of Transfiguration. A lot of us have been there. And on the Mount of Transfiguration, Jesus has an encounter with the ancestors, and his appearance changes. He just glows. There's this brightness that just shines from him, and they call that transfiguration. Well, I think whenever we are our true selves, we glow. We are transfigured. We become more of who we are, and that becomes more apparent to the people who are looking at us. And so I think of transitioning as transfiguring, as people becoming who they're meant to be and then shining because of it. And so I think the story of the Transfiguration is a story that we can apply to our trans siblings. Excellent. Whenever I get Dennis to kick it off, he always goes for the gut wrenching, I should ask somebody who I know has a softball, but I don't have the list in front of me, so I forget. So there's still some element of surprise. Tara, why don't you ask us something?
Okie doke. In the Bible, there is a passage that talks about faith, hope, and love, with the greatest being love. Why doesn't the church focus on just teaching about love?
Well, because and furthermore, that's the Apostle Paul, who says that in the end, three things abide: faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. Jesus's mandate in the Gospel of John is that his disciples love one another. When asked what the greatest commandments are, he says, love God and love people. And those are sentences that he lets right out of Deuteronomy and Leviticus. So the writer of 1 John says, God is love, and whoever lives in love lives in God, and God lives in them. The love ethic is consistent. And even before Jesus, like I said, the love God and love neighbor, that comes right out of the Torah. Even the eye for an eye business was to keep people from overreacting. If you lost an eye in a fight, then you could demand that the person who hurt you lose an eye. Nothing more. That you couldn't do more to them than they did. It was a way of sort of showing respect, of not going too far, of not letting your rage consume you, not letting revenge take over. So we got to where even even we want to do better than eye for an eye. We want to get to turn the other cheek. But even the eye for eye business, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, you can't punish someone more than their transgression. Punishment has to fit the crime. So everything is about justice and love and fairness, adjusted for cultural expressions and vocabulary of motives. But the motive behind the biblical ethics is love. And so that is the case. But then the question is, why doesn't the church? Well, the church, now you're talking organization. Now you're talking hierarchy. Now you're talking power and privilege. You're talking bank accounts. You're talking bylaws. You're talking creeds. Now you're getting into structures and people who protect structures, especially the structures that protect them. And it's a natural occurrence. I mean, I don't think there's anyone with an evil plan to make that happen. It's just human nature plus organizational survival plus. So, and then we're all victims of victims. Some of us just grew up in really mean religious environments, so when we can't even become our true authentic selves without wondering how that makes God mad. Wow, wow. And so, and that's because we don't all have healthy understandings of what love is. A lot of times we talk about love, and one of our generous critics, wanting to help us find the one true path, will tell us, yes, God is loving, but God is also righteous, and God will judge, and God hates sin, and you've got to do it God's way. And then they go into all of this love as a transaction, and love as you gotta follow very, very clear-cut rules, or there will be horrible consequences, which shows that they don't have any understanding of what healthy, life-giving love is. Right? So I think a lot of people focusing on rules, focusing on retribution, focusing on punishment, have convinced themselves that's what love looks like. And in their home or in their church, that may have been what was called love. This hurts me more than it hurts you, but I'm gonna do it anyway, and I'm gonna do it frequently, because I love you. And so we associate love with control, domination, abuse, pain, lack of availability, whatever. And so yeah, a lot of us have just not experienced healthy, life-giving love, and so we don't know what it is, so we mislabel it. So churches are organizations, and organizations are made up of people, and not all people have had healthy experiences. I've spent a lot of time and a lot of education and a lot of money and a lot of time on therapist couches trying to get healthier in my own life. And in moments of radical self-evaluation and honesty, I sometimes think, wow, I really have some work yet to do. So now add to that all the people who haven't started the work yet. So yes, God is love. Love is the biblical ethic. Love is the message of Jesus. And we've just gotten it wrong a lot. And so part of the spiritual path, I don't think, isn't to please God, but to learn the ways that we have weaponized God and misused God and cut the crap out. So I think it's very loving, a very loving thing that we do, trying to deconstruct and reconstruct a faith experience that is more inclusive, more loving, more affirming. And so, yeah, I mean, why is governments that work well, but why are some governments terrible? Families that are healthy and beautiful, but why are some families really terrible? Church is religion, and religion, when religion is good, is so good, and when it's terrible, it's really terrible. So I think our job is to try to heal the pain of terrible religion and offer, hopefully, a better alternative.
I get the like you said, this comes from Paul, the faith, hope, and love. I get faith and I get love. I mean, those seem like two pretty common church topics, but the hope, like what what are we commanded to hope about? What's the hope?
Well, Paul is just talking about eternal verities. The three things that will always endure. Faith is just trust. You're going to trust something, even if you trust it's all terrible. You trust that. That you trust something. There's something that you just believe to your core is true. You trust something. So you're always going to trust something, even if you trust that people suck. You are going to trust something. And love is what lasts. Our loved ones leave us. They depart, and decades later we're still remembering them. Maybe we try to commune with them. We miss them. They show up in our dreams. And so love endures, trust endures, and he makes the case, and I think I agree with this, is that hope also endures. That even people who've known extreme despair, sometimes hope breaks through. So he's just saying that these are the three things that these last, these linger, these are resilient virtues. But of those, love is the absolute strongest. Love is the most divine virtue. I was hearing a story the other day on NPR about a man who, when he was very young, was sentenced to life in prison, and he renewed a relationship with a girlfriend he'd had, I guess, in high school, and they became a serious couple, and then got married, and started a family, and she was working to get his sentence commuted, and he didn't want to do it because he knew how to be her husband and a father from prison. He knew how to live the life he had accepted. He had given up any hope of ever leaving. He knew he would die in prison. And so he didn't want to hope, because he thought that would be too devastating to apply and get turned down, apply and get turned down. Maybe I get out, now I'm not. Maybe I'll get out, now I'm not. So he'd worked out how he could live his life, and now he's got love, he's got family. It's better than he ever thought it could be. He just dared not hope for anything better, but she wanted it so bad. So he talked about eventually how hope just broke out, and he did want to be commuted, and then sure enough he applied, and sure enough it didn't happen, and he was crushed. But then the wife got a call from the governor, and he did get commuted. And then there was new challenges of having to live a life he hadn't even imagined was possible. But so even in his situation where he actively and intentionally tried to give up hope snuck back up. So I think that's just what Paul is saying, is that faith, hope, and love, those are the things that you just can't really get rid of. And the point he was making to those people was that he thought love was the greatest of those three great things.
I think, and somebody even made this comment that, and you said it too, Sunshine Cathedral does a great job of making sure that message is clear, that love is the greatest commandment. And of course, we do talk about faith and hope and justice and stuff like that, but there are way too many churches out there that focus on the fear and the hatred and this and the control. So I think we're all lucky enough to be a part of Sunshine Cathedral, and I think there's too many out there that have not heard a message like we give. So I'm glad we do things like this to reach those people who may have not have heard that before. So
Yeah.
Excellent. Tito, why don't you give us another one, please?
All right. So this one's for Darrell and everyone else. Has there ever been a time that you doubted God's existence? If so, how did you resolve the matter? It's a tough one.
Since they specifically wanted everyone, let's start with everyone. You
I have a
grew
good
up very.
Tim has the answer that
I
person's
want you,
looking
you're
for.
the anchor on this tug of war team. I'm saving you, Sam.
Yeah.
But Terry, you grew up very religious in a very faithful, very devout home.
Yeah.
And then you you had second thoughts about that version of religion, and yet you've worked in Catholic churches and in our church, and so although you can work anywhere, I mean you can do your job. It doesn't mean you have to have a heart, your heart in the philosophy of it.
Good actress.
So what about that? Have you ever doubted either the goodness of God or the existence of God, and then what happened after that?
Yeah, well, it was kind of a contest between doubting the God that I grew up with in my religion, and then just doubting like God in general. So first I doubted the God of my childhood that I was taught about in my religion, because when I was in college, it was college, and my mind was opened up to me in a lot of different ways, and it was ways that my church didn't approve of. And so, but I was learning, and I was growing, and I was loving, and I was becoming a better person, in my opinion. And but it wasn't right for my church. And so then I started doubting that God, but I didn't doubt God, if that makes sense. And then it wasn't until later that I doubted God, through some other personal struggles. And then, it was probably 10, 15 years of just, not even wanting to really think about where I stood with God, because it was just too painful, and it was just too hard. And then I found the Sunshine Cathedral, and y'all remember there were a lot of Sundays where I just cried. I mean, I'm in the choir and I'm up there and I'm just crying the whole time, because I experienced yet a different God that I hadn't experienced before. And I think I just realized it's not about me, like kind of like we were talking about earlier with the transgender question, like God, it's not about pleasing God or making God like me. It's just about being myself, and I'm automatically part of God, and I don't need to worry about his approval. It's not about me. And that's kind of where I ended up.
Tito, your family was fairly religious. You didn't go to parochial school, I don't think, but your family was sort of religious. Where did you end up? Did you ever doubt God? And then how did you get through that?
I guess kind of like Tara, I had a version of God that I was taught. And then as I started early teens, I kind of was pushing that idea of God away. And I started searching for my own version and own idea of who God was and what God meant for me. I stopped going to church, and then I just literally started saying, well, you know what? God's gonna love me because I'm his child, and that's that. And I believed in God, and I prayed to God, but kind of the same way, you evolve the God that you believe in at that time as you learn more or get older and life happens. Sunshine Cathedral happens. But even before Sunshine Cathedral, there was one time where I just thought God had let me go for a while there. And I found my strength again in God. And sorry. I found my strength again in God, and was able to lift myself out of the darkness that I was in. And I guess also finding my strength in God, I found that I was stronger than I thought I was.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a terrible feeling that God has let you go, and sort of a life-changing, world-changing experience to come to believe that that's not even possible. If God is, then God is, and you can't, there's no getting away from what is, and we're part of it. Emerson said, "Be careful of the God you're worshiping, because the God you're worshiping, what you're worshiping is what you're becoming." And so, we have an angry God, we're probably not going to be gentle people. If we have a judgy God, we're probably not going to be open-minded, inclusive people. So if we have a God that has a lot of rules, we're probably not going to be, relaxed, joyful people. And so, yeah, be careful what you're worshiping, because what you're worshiping, you are becoming. And if what you're worshiping is sort of mean or cruel or distant, eventually you may feel, I've got to get away from that. Or maybe I'll never measure up to that and it got away from me. And that's a real crisis of faith. And so, which is another reason we tell people at Sunshine Cathedral, whatever your beliefs or doubts may be, you participate at your level of comfort. We're not, you can't really get it wrong. And what we want you is to feel safe and included, and hear some things that'll make you think, and then you continue your journey. We want to be your cheerleaders on your journey, not tell you what it has to look like or where it has to lead. And which is why we believe a million different things at Sunshine Cathedral, but all seem to get along pretty well, because we're just all on our journeys. So that's good. Now so we've gone from LDS to Catholicism. Oh, but then there's Bible Belt fundamentalism. So maybe you have a story, Dennis.
I don't think there was ever a time I doubted God, but I tried to run away. Because of, like Tito and Tara has said, the God that I was taught was a very judgmental, hateful God, apparently. So I grew up in the church, and I was always there. If the doors to the church were open, and we went to so many different churches through my childhood, but no matter which one we went to, we got completely and totally involved in those churches, and it was always a Baptist church. And so I ran away from God, and thought, because of the God that I grew up understanding and knowing, thought, okay, I'm never going to measure up, so what's the use? And so it's not until I find that, what, God's not Santa Claus. He's not writing down who's bad and who's good, and naughty and nice, and whether you're going to get coal or a present. That's not God. So until I came to understand that, I like Tito said, I've always believed in God, a God. The one that I grew up with, I ran away from that God for a very, very long time. And I'm grateful and thankful that that's not my God.
Those are the stories we read in the Bible over and over too, about, this contest between Baal and our community's God, or between the Egyptian gods and our God, that there's always this contest between the gods of materialism and vengeance and war and punishment, and a God of love, a God of inclusion, a life-giving God that wants to free God's people from slavery, that wants justice for the people, that wants goodness for the people. And so those stories are parables. Those stories are allegories for our own experiences. I think we all have made a choice to deny Baal and or Molech, and have a better experience of the divine. We've all had to destroy our golden calves and find a bigger, better experience of the divine. Now that was from one Baptist. I married a Baptist, and who's a faith leader. But Robert, did you ever have a time where you wondered if either God was ever going to be on your side, or if there was any God at all?
At one point, I could have been a close second to Doubting Thomas. My thing was like, I need to see it. I need to believe it. You got to show me. I needed a show me God type of a faith growing up, and when the show me part didn't come through, that's when I said, well, see, it doesn't really exist. But I think later in life, the moments or times I experienced that, and Tito, I mean, you dropped a very profound line when God let me go. When I experienced those types of moments, it's probably when I realized my faith was growing more, and and something that I didn't even know was growing in around what it means to be to be held by love, to be held in hope, to be present with something that I didn't even have a name for. And in those moments of just trying to figure it out, there was a lot of times, and I think I probably am richer in my own faith now because of having gone through those moments. And there's no particular incident or anything like that, but just moments of crap, I got another test, there's no God, or I'm joining the military, there better be a God, or oh wow, I just tested HIV, where is God? And and all those types of moments, or this close friend has died, or that person died, where is God? And so moments of faith crisis, or moments of wondering where is God, and only to realize much later that God had never left me, and the presence of God was always there. And you have to work through that. I don't think there can be a snap of a finger, like a snap queen, or anything like it. You just have to work through it and know that when you're working through it, you're becoming stronger.
I like the image of spirit. Spirit is energy, wind, breath, life, power, life force. And so there was a Unitarian Universalist minister, Forest Church, and he used to say, when Trinitarians think that Unitarians don't believe in the Trinity, and of course that's true, but that for him the one is spirit, and spirit is ubiquitous, it's omnipresent, it's ever renewing, it's refreshing, it's powerful. So I love that image of spirit. And Robert used to sort of cling to that too. There was a time, because of our ecumenical work and having to deal with all kinds of people from all kinds of religious traditions or whatever, that in heated theological discussions, Robert would say, God's a racist and Jesus is dead. The spirit is all I have left. And that really tormented Caucasian seminarians, which was part of the reason. But it was also profound that, the God you presented is not for me, and the sanitized version of Jesus you're giving me is not necessarily for me. But the spirit blows where she will. And so the spirit is always hovering over the waters of chaos to bring forth creation. The spirit, that's I think for a lot of us, that's the salvation of deity is spirit. God on a throne, a little nervous about that. God in a person walking around, flesh and blood, well, that's, no matter how you slice that, that's gonna be too limiting. But the spirit, this omnipresent light and power and wind, and I think that's how we can maybe restore our faith in something. And it is just something. You can't really nail it down. You can't nail spirit down. And so we try to. We paint little doves or whatever, but that's spirit is so much more than that. Okay. We saved the good stuff for the end. Sam, the kind of Lutheran, the Lutheran light of yesteryear.
Lubricate.
Did you first of all, did you ever believe in God? And second of all, if you did you ever stop believing? And then if you did you ever reclaim something?
No, I never believed in God. I never believed in Santa Claus, and I never believed in God. And that's actually kind of how I tell it, because like when I was really young, and I was trying to figure out how the world worked, and I was trying to figure out what was real and what wasn't real and everything else, I could not bring myself to believe in either of those things, one of which actively provided me with gifts once a year, right? So like had, and the other one seemed like a very limiting force on a lot of the adults in my life.
Right.
And then I wanted to really bad. I wanted to so badly to believe in something, and I just couldn't. And I think, for a while I just thought I was really analytical, but I think that one of the things that I found was that for some reason religion did seem to be a limiting force on people around me. When I went to churches, they didn't necessarily feel like places that were empowering. It didn't seem like they gave people strength. It didn't seem like it gave them a lot of certainty about anything except for the afterlife, which I've said before. My greatest fear is infinity, and so I don't want to live forever. And so that was they were like, don't you want to go to heaven and live forever? And I was like, no. So then that didn't seem very beneficial. And then I just didn't see those, there just didn't seem like a lot of benefit to me. But I very much wanted to, like I wanted to experience that kind of like joy or connection or whatever. And it wasn't until I came to Sunshine Cathedral and kind of like you talk about like the spirit and kind of like seeing God as something bigger than that, really hit me. And I started studying the Course in Miracles with Margarita and Nancy, and the whole idea that like we're all sort of like made of God and God is in us, and like the only real thing that could upset God in theory is for us to not see God in one another. And that was just so poetic and so beautiful to me, that I just latched onto it. And now I believe in that God. But if I explain that to a lot of people I know, they'll tell me that I still don't believe in God. So I guess I don't. But yeah, I mean, and that's kind of how I came to it. I always, when I was younger, like a teenager and in my early 20s and stuff, I didn't think there was a God, but I thought there was some way that we were all connected. And I thought that like there was some kind of spirit or life force, and I kind of tied that into like the energy of the earth and, things like that. And I always said, I think I've said this before, my thing was like, I have a fire in me. Like there's a fire in me. It like motivates me, and it like, I'm empowered by it. And it like, and if that's God, then I'm okay with that. Like I would be open to that and I won't fight it. But this, sort of like oppressive, angry father figure that a lot of people that I know worshipped, that had a plan that was challenging me all the time. I was just like, that's not, I'm not in a movie.
Yeah.
I don't need a plot twist. I'm just, so that was where I ended up. But I mean, Sunshine Cathedral, it truly did make me believe in God. So I guess like congratulations, because I never thought that shit was gonna happen. And when I showed up and I sat there and cried all the time, that was why. Because I did the same thing that Tara did, except I did it in a corner by myself.
She's a big tough lesbian.
And I'm a big tough lesbian. And but it was like, wow, this is where God lives. Because in every other church that I went to, I was like, okay, this is nice, and I like the music. I was like, but it does not feel like God lives here, like all the time. But when I walked into our church, I did feel that. And then you told me that I didn't have to believe in God, and I was like, well, he definitely lives here then.
Exactly. Well, and language is so personal, and when we talk about beauty and love and hope and interpersonal connection and the interconnected web of the universe, and maybe just because of how I grew up and the language I grew up with, my mind is translating all of that as God, 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 God. So God is like divine poetry. It's just what I apply to ultimate meaning and life-changing significance and connection and love and what's truest and best. I call that God. If you called that a fire in me or something else, like what difference? That language is personal. We use the language that language is a tool, and we all use tools differently. So yeah, I'm a religion guy. I'm a religion guy from way back. I tend to think that stuff is God. A Buddhist wouldn't say God. A Buddhist doesn't even really think much about it. They would think about ultimate reality, but not about a being. And even I don't think about a being. I think about being itself, and I'm part of it. So we all have our own ways of processing things. We have different brains. We have different vocabularies. So yeah, Sunshine Cathedral, we're not going to say, stay it my way or you must be getting it wrong. No, we want you to say it your way and I'm going to say it my way. And hopefully in the conversation, we all find something even deeper and richer and better. But yeah, it's way more the journey than the tick off the boxes on the multiple choice test. So, well, Tito, have we had any break-in questions?
No, the last person made a comment.
This one right here.
Yeah.
Comments are good.
Did we all cry like babies when we first went to the Sunshine Cathedral? Question mark.
Yes.
I used to sit in the church pew and bawl my eyes out.
Yeah.
And I was gonna save it for my last thought. But when she mentioned the crying and whatnot, and it was the same thing for me when I first came to Sunshine Cathedral. The first couple weeks, every Sunday, I would cry. It's like this healing that happens to you when you hear what you're preaching at Sunshine Cathedral compared to what we grew up with. And I remember every single Sunday, there was always somebody around me. Tissue?
Yes.
Nice.
There was always somebody to give me tissue.
Nice.
It's initiation.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
Well, that's beautiful. This is sort of turned into a Sunshine Cathedral infomercial. That's not how. That's not necessarily was the plan. But when people are telling their personal faith experiences, that may include their faith community. So yeah, I think it all worked out the way it's supposed to tonight. Robert, why don't you wind us up or wind us down?
Well, yeah, I have someone here who. There's a face just looking at me right here. If you saw this Bella face, but anywho, thanks everybody for joining us tonight, and we really appreciate that. So we're gonna land the plane with final thoughts. I know Tito just kind of led into his, but let's start with final thoughts. Let's go with Dennis.
I knew you were going to start with me, and I wasn't ready. I know, right? I think we've all said before, our spiritual journeys are going to take us on different paths, and Sunshine Cathedral isn't the only church that's out there that's a good, solid church to be at, but it just happens to be the one that we found. And if you haven't found a church that's like Sunshine Cathedral, follow us online. But there are great churches out there. Joy, I see Terry Steve Pierce on with us. So, she's in Orlando. Maybe you're in Orlando. Check out Joy and see what they have to offer. Listen, there are great churches out there. You just have to do some work sometimes to find them.
We'll stay there. Tito, anything else?
Just remember to bring tissue.
Yeah, because we're social distancing right now.
Yeah.
We get sponsored by Kleenex.
We'll start putting tissue in the Ziploc bags for worship outside.
I would be like, are you a first timer?
First time with tissue.
Here's the first time with tissue. Yes.
All right, Tara, how about it?
I just want to thank everybody for their vulnerability tonight. I saw that question on the queue, and I knew if that got asked tonight that it was going to be a tissue night. And Tito, I'm especially thankful for you. I felt that too, and I felt like God had let me go. And sometimes I looked at my friends and my relatives and wondered why God didn't let them go, but God let me go, and it was very painful. And so I think a lot of people have been in your shoes, and it's just it's sad to hear, but it's almost comforting to hear that we're not alone in thinking that, because it's just not true. And I will say, my relationship with God is always evolving and ebbing and flowing. And in the times in my life when I have put effort into my relationship with God, God has always shown their presence to me. And so again, I'll just really about me. Like God is always there. And that's something that I've found to be constant and consistent in my life.
I think it was Meister Eckhart that said, God is always present. It was me who went out for a walk.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right, Sam.
So for me, and kind of talking about my story a little bit, for so long, religion and God just meant conformity. It was all, and that kind of ties in with the first question that Dennis had. It's like, well, am I doing the right thing? Is God mad at me? And I just rejected it outright. And I know that a lot of people don't, they can't do that. And so they kind of try to jump through the hoops and everything. And it wasn't until God was no longer conformity. It was like, oh, you can doubt, you can do whatever, you can say whatever, that I was able to truly sort of experience that presence. Because I think that's what the true whatever, the sort of untainted by, greed or whatever, presence of God is for me.
If you look up defiant in the dictionary, it'll say Sam Miller.
Love it.
Love it.
It's true.
Close it out. One of our viewers has a final thought.
Okay.
Kleenex brand tissue, the official sponsor of Sunshine.
Thank
Thank you, Brian.
And with that, we will let that be it. So thanks everybody for joining us this evening, Christians and Cocktails. Again, you can go to the website, sunshinecathedral.org, and find all the programs that we have going on. We invite you to join us. If you enjoy what we're doing, we invite you also to leave us a donation through one of our many apps that are there. But for now, have a great evening, and it will be 7:50 soon. So enjoy your evening, everyone. Take care.
Yes.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Where's the off button?
Where's the off button?